Welcome to Ken's Sewing Center, and congratulations on the purchase of your Janome HD5050. You're going to love the features of your new machine, and let's talk about a few of them. First off, you do have an instruction manual, which is going to review a lot of what we're talking about today. Okay? And it's nice to have that printed hardcover of the hard written book for your sewing machine. Now, one of the great accessories that come with your 5050 is an extension table. So let's use it. We're going to take our accessory tray off, and we'll set that to the side. Pop up the little legs, and just slide this on, just like that. All that extension, all that room, always nice to have when we're working on any kind of project. The first thing we're going to do is wind a bobbin. And so you can see our spool of thread up here. And when we are winding a bobbin, it is just going to go under this little metal disc. And make sure that you pull tightly as you put this thread around that little metal disc so it gets under there, because that metal disc is providing a certain amount of tension that is needed for your bobbin winding. On your bobbin, and this is actually a Janome bobbin, and what I mean by that, it is a class 15 bobbin, but you'll see in the middle, on that middle post, the letter J, which of course stands for Janome. That is telling you that it is made out of a slightly different material than other class 15 bobbins. There's a little rubber embedded in that bobbin so that as it spins in your bobbin case, it is not going to unnecessarily wear away your bobbin case. So the Janome bobbins are good to use. One way to get your bobbin started, there is a little hole in one of the sides of your bobbin, and you can simply just take your thread and feed it from the center out, from the center out of your bobbin, just like that. And so we'll use this thread that's up above your bobbin as a little tail to hold on to. We're going to put our bobbin on. We're going to engage the bobbin winder by pushing that to the right. And your screen has changed a little bit, and it just shows you a picture of the bobbin. So that's a friendly reminder for you that your bobbin winder is engaged. So we'll just step on the foot control and start winding. We can use our slide bar to adjust how fast or slow our bobbin is winding. And I'm actually going to cut this thread tail off right now and just wind a little more. When you're done winding as much as you'd like, you of course can stop at any time, or that bumper will cause it to stop when it's full. We'll just push the bobbin winder to the left. We'll cut our threads and put our bobbin in. So this is where our bobbin is going to go, of course. When you look at the bobbin cover, you'll see all kinds of markings as far as measurements, like an 1/8, 3/8, 5/8. And of course, the markings in between give you a 1/2 inch and a 1/4 inch. And those markings actually extend to your throat plate. And that's what these little indents are at each of those right in front of your bobbin cover. We're going to put our bobbin in like the letter P. So here's that backbone of the P, and there's that letter, the circle of the P. Or if you were to pull your threads off, it comes off counterclockwise. Now this is an easy set bobbin, meaning when we drop our bobbin in, there's a metal piece right here. It just kind of sticks up just a shade. So that's all you're aiming for. Nothing tougher than that. So we're just going to put it under there. And then to the left of this bobbin area, there's a little guide that says 1 and 2. That's where we're going to follow our thread around. Number 2 is actually a thread cutter. Boom. And now you're ready to start stitching because your bobbin is in place. We're going to thread our machine. So once again, you will see some numbers that will direct you the order of threading. There's number 1. Just take your thread like dental floss and pull it till it gets under there. We'll go to 2, 3 comes up and around. 4 is that take up lever, up on the right side, down on the left side. There's a hook at the top of the needle. And then you do have a needle threader. Now the best way to use your needle threader first is to do needle down, needle up. And that's what this button is. It looks like an arrow pointing up and an arrow pointing down. When we do that, when we touch it once, the needle goes down. Touch it a second time, it comes up. So now your needle is in the perfect position for the needle threader. To give my hands a little more room, I'm going to lower the presser foot and pull this needle threader down. Now, just to the left of the needle, you'll see a little gray hook. And that's where you're first going to take this thread under that gray hook, just like that. Then put your thread right in front of the needle. And notice how my hand is toward the back of the machine a little bit. So that's just ensuring that I have that thread up against the needle. And now we're going to let this lever up. And as we let this lever up, we absolutely have to let go of the thread in our right hand. So boom, there's our loop. And now our thread and needle is threaded. Convenient to have your presser foot lifter right here on the inside belly, I'll call it, of your Janome 5050. So let's just stitch a little bit. When you first turn it on, it does go to straight stitch down the center of the foot. And you can see that by looking at the 2 big zeros right here. This is your stitch guide, and stitch 0, 0 is straight stitch down the center of the foot. Ends with the needle down, which is many times what we prefer. You can, of course, set it to default with leaving the needle up. If you now want it to pivot, you can simply pick up your presser foot and turn the corner and stitch. Now when you're done with your seam, the scissor button will actually pull the threads back to the back side and cut them. And now raise the presser foot. And there's your great little stitch right there. As we look at the front of the HD5050, you'll see these 5 buttons right there. These 5 buttons, these are quick select stitches. This M with the scissor, that's for when you're programming some stitches. But with these buttons, if you wanted to do a zigzag stitch, simply touch that one right there. And you can see it went to stitch number 6 and the stitch length and width. Of course, at home when you're stitching, you need to be center of your needle. So have that center of your body right in line with the needle, and that way you can easily use your right hand to raise and lower the presser foot. So I'm just doing it slightly different so that you can have a good view of what you're doing. So now, we stitched some of the zigzag stitch, but let's say you wanted that stitch wider. This is a 7mm machine, so you can adjust the stitch width, how wide that zigzag is. You can also adjust the spacing, how close or how far apart your zigzag is. Scissor button. And so there's our zigzags. So as set out of the box, the factory settings, and again, you can change them wider or narrower. There is a buttonhole that is a quick select stitch also. You do have three other buttonholes shown here, but if you just say, I want a buttonhole, instead of dialing in one of those stitches, you can just do the quick select like that. So let's make a buttonhole. Our feet easily snap on and off. There's a little button in the back that you kind of pull towards you and your foot will come off. This is your buttonholer, and your buttonholer actually will size the buttonhole for your button. Your physical button you can put right in this place on the buttonholer, and then it will make a buttonhole to meet the needs of your button. Since I don't have a button, I apologize on that. We're just going to use a bobbin. Nice and round, just like a button. So we'll put that in there and then close that little area so it's holding the bobbin in perfectly. This, of course, right here is where your foot is going to attach to your ankle of your machine. So we'll slide this under, we'll raise that up and snap it. Now I heard it snap and you probably did too, but personally, once I snap my foot on, I like to double check that my foot is truly attached. And the easiest way to do that is to just raise your presser foot. So if that foot comes up with when you raise and lower your presser foot, then you're good to go. The last thing you need to do when you're making a buttonhole, and it is in essence pictured on your screen, there is a little lever. It looks like the letter B, but it's a little icon representing your buttonhole lever, and it actually has a picture of a buttonhole on it. That lever that it's talking about is a little behind your needle threader and up into the body of your Janome, and there it is. And here you can see that it is black in color. Okay, that is your buttonhole maker. That is what's going to make it stitch. So when we do buttonholes, you definitely need to use some type of stabilizer. Traditionally, when we do clothing, we think of interfacing and clothing. So the stabilizer is in essence doing the same thing that your stabilizer would do. Okay? And depending on your project, will determine what kind of stabilizer you use. So now we are ready to stitch. Now I just want to grab this thread, so pardon me for one quick second. So here is this thread tail, okay? I actually just like to hold on to this thread tail. You do not have to if you don't want to, but I just like to hold on to this. We have our buttonhole selected, we have that black lever down, and let's start stitching. It beeped, it's done. So let's touch the scissor button and let's look at the buttonhole and talk about what it did. Beautiful buttonhole right there. So if you watched it stitching, you'll notice that it first did a running stitch going backward on the left-hand side. And then it came forward doing that satin stitch on the left-hand side. It then ran across to the right-hand side, running stitch going backward, did the back bar tack, the right side satin stitch, and then the bar tack in front. So what I'm trying to explain is that when it did the satin stitches on both sides came in the same direction. And that gives you a beautiful balanced buttonhole. Both sides look similar. And that's how easy making a buttonhole on your HD5050 is. So now that we're done making a buttonhole, push that buttonhole lever back up and we'll take this foot off. And now let's talk about the decorative stitches that you see on the face of your Janome 5050. The 5050, you have 50 stitches on this model. And many of them are utility stitches like a blind hem. Let's do a blind hem. So stitch number 11 is a blind hem. So we can use these arrows here to change the big number to number 11. It's telling us to use the G foot. And of course, that comes with your Janome. And right back there, right behind where the bar you use to attach this foot to your ankle of your machine is, that is where the letter is. So we'll just snap this on. So you can attach your foot two ways, and both ways is absolutely correct. You can just take your foot and pick it up and snap it in. There we go. Just needed my muscle. Or you could simply lower your presser foot lever and snap it on. And again, when I snap a foot on, always raise that presser foot back up to make certain that it's attached. So the key to a blind hem is the folding of your fabric. And so I have a piece of fabric here that is printed on one side and looks like the wrong side on the other. So let's say that we wanted to put a hem in this fabric. So we, of course, can fold that hem up, right? Just like that. Well, a little straighter maybe, right? So there's our hem of our fabric. To use the blind hem, we're now just going to fold this part, which would be, say, your garment, back, and there you can see that edge of your hem. Your blind hem foot has a guide. Looks like a little blade down the center of the foot, and that's what you will use to butt up against this fold. So we'll position this. Again, that guide now is right up against that fold. And now you're going to stitch. As it stitches, and I'll slow this down so you can kind of see, it does some straight stitching, then jumps over. Straight stitching, then jumps over. And when it jumps over, that's when it's taking the bite out of your garment to hem it up. Scissors. So there is your blind hem, and there you can see it's just taking a little bite out of your fabric. Now sometimes, and you might look at this and think the bite is a little big. If we take a look at the picture of the stitch itself, you can see that there's an arrow pointing left and right. You can adjust where that stitch is. So in essence, you can adjust how big of a bite that jump over is taking. And so we can simply adjust the width of the stitch. And the furthest it will allow us to adjust is to the 1.2. So now it will take less of a bite out of your fabric. You really need to, when you are doing a blind hem, test your actual fabric, because some fluffier fabric, think of like flannel or something like a wool skirt or something, is a little fluffier than a flat piece of cotton fabric. So the bite might need to be adjusted, but you can easily do that simply by using your stitch width icon. And again, the picture of the stitch on your machine, on the face of your 5050, shows you that you can adjust it. Stitch number 11 is for woven fabrics, and stitch number 12 is for knits. Let's do some decorative stitching. Again, you have a great collection, and we'll go to stitch number 27. A nice little scallop with some little bridges, almost kind of like an applique stitch. So we'll go to 27. It selects the stitch length and width for you. Okay, we're going to go to a different stitch. Okay? Just because it doesn't make me use the BF foot. Okay? So we're going to start a decorative stitch. Okay? So let's do a decorative stitch. And let's go to number 39. It's a pretty little asterisk, or kind of looks like a star. So the big numbers will be 39. And there again is that stitch width and length. And now you'll notice that it's asking for the F foot. And the F foot, of course, you get that. And it's important that you use the F foot for your decorative stitches when it is called for. And why is that? Your A foot is perfectly flat on the bottom side. So if you were trying to do a stitch that has some buildup of thread, it's going to be difficult to glide under this or feed under this A foot because of how flat it is. Your F foot, while it might be a little challenging to see here, has a little cutout, like a little tunnel on the bottom side, which will allow the buildup of stitches to feed through. So we're going to snap this on. Again, I used the lever and I raised it back up to ensure that the foot was on. So just like we use stabilizer for our buttonhole, we're going to use some stabilizer for our decorative stitches. There are a lot of different stabilizers out there, and it's important to use stabilizer for your decorative stitches. Otherwise, your fabric might, and I'll use the term tunnel, kind of scrunch up on itself, but the stabilizer provides all that support. So this is that asterisk stitch number 39, and we'll start stitching. Oh, we'll speed this up a little too. And we'll touch the scissors. And there we go. Beautiful little asterisk stitch. But one thing you might notice, when we stopped stitching, you'll notice that that's like maybe 3/4 of an asterisk stitch. It did not complete that final stitch. So the question is, can we complete a stitch? And if so, how can we do that? And the answer is yes, we can complete a stitch. And that's when we're going to utilize this button. We call it a tie-off button. It looks like a Target button. That button there, while you are stitching, and you can even touch this while you are doing your stitch, it will complete that stitch and do no more. So let's do this asterisk stitch one more time. And I'm going to stop for a second just to let you know that while I'm stitching, I'm going to touch this Target button. I could touch it right now if we'd like, or you can do that while you're stitching. You do not have to stop stitching. That just happened to be very close to the end there. When you touch it, it does make a little beep so that you know you activated it. And there you can see a beautiful little asterisk or star stitch. Let's look at one more stitch here in the sewing menu. And we'll do stitch number 43, a beautiful scallop. So we'll come up to 43. And let's stitch a little bit. And this time, just to share with you what this start-stop button is for. The start-stop button is perfect for you to stitch with. However, in order to use that, you do have to physically unplug your foot control. So I've unplugged this. We're going to touch the start-stop button. Touch that target button so it would complete that stitch and cut it. So is that not a pretty little scallop? And the reason I wanted to share this with you, because first, when you have your HD5050 at home, just stitch all of your stitches out and see what they really look like. One is prettier than the next. But I want to give you a little inspiration with this little scallop stitch. This would be a beautiful edging to any project. So for example, you have a garment that you purchase from the store. You can put a little stabilizer behind it, stitch along the bottom, and now trim up right next to that scallop stitch. And now you've changed the appearance of that garment that you bought with a scallop edge. Do it along the edge of a pillowcase or on placemats. But this makes a beautiful edging. Just wanting to give you a little inspiration there. So one other accessory that comes with your Janome HD5050 is a walking foot. And what is a walking foot good for? Why would we use it? Quilters, of course, use a walking foot when they are putting their 3 layers together. So they're backing, they're batting, and their quilt top. So it's moving all 3 layers together. Garment sewers, you certainly can use this, and also those that might be making purses or home dec projects. Because if you're working with fabrics that might not like each other, for example, like a crepe and a velvet, this is that perfect attachment, this walking foot, to use to feed all those layers together. And if you use minky, or cuddle, that soft, snuggly fabric, this truly is a must that you should use with those projects. First off, when you attach your walking foot, this bar right here needs to go above your needle screw. And as I move this up and down, you can kind of see how these top feed dogs are moving. And that's what the needle going up and down is going to do for you. You see this slot in the back? The slot in the back is for your quilting bar or your quilting guide. And what this will do is, say you're doing a bunch of straight line stitching on your quilt project and you want to create that crosshatch. This will allow you to evenly space those lines out without having to mark them all. This fits into the back here. You snap it in, and this is very securely held. It's going to be tight moving as you try to reposition it, maybe for the different measurements or spacings of your rows of stitching, but you want this to be secure because you do not want it to shift while you're stitching. And then we're going to attach our walking foot, we actually remove this ankle. And I call it the ankle because Our feet are attached to our ankle. So we're going to remove the ankle. We're going to use our screwdriver. This is your handy convenient screwdriver. And this is what you can use to remove your throat plate when you're wanting to clean out your bobbin area, which we should, or to change a needle to loosen that screw also. So we're going to take this ankle off. And I just want to make certain that you're comfortable how this is going to fit on. Of course, the screw that we just removed is going to go here, so it's going to fit around the shaft of your machine. And then see this bar? Remember I said that that needs to go above the needle screw. So if we just lower our hand wheel a little, there you can easily see the screw that holds our needle in. There's our bar on our walking foot, and now it's positioned perfectly. And now simply put that screw back in and enjoy using your walking foot on your many projects. So enjoy your purchase of your Janome HD5050. Happy sewing!